Video how Minecraft #1 player got exposed. I don't know nothing about Minecraft, but I will watch this while I eat my salad.
Money. It makes the
Might as
world
well.
go round, with people willing to do almost anything to get more of it. In fact, money is so important that it can dictate how society behaves as a whole. If it paid
Money isn't the problem. I think people is the problem. Money is just like a tool.
to be kind, then people would be kind. But if it paid more to be evil, then people would simply turn evil. More specifically, if it paid to
facts,
fake
though.
your gender and fake your skill level to millions of people for
your
years by
gender?
hacking and cheating, some would willingly choose to do
Yo.
so if it was profitable. However, you'd have to be a very special kind of degenerate to do those things, all while planning to publicly fake your own suicide once you were inevitably exposed to be a fraud.
Average
Meet
Minecraft
Marvel,
situation.
who for years was considered to be the most skilled player to ever
What are we about to
exist
watch,
in
bro?
Minecraft PvP. In parallel to that though, they'd be running a totalitarian regime that would ban and blacklist anyone who doubted or criticized them, throwing all women under the bus by claiming that any and all valid criticisms against them were rooted in misogyny. This would be the community status quo for far too long. And now finally, after all these years of manipulation, silencing, and bullying of critics, Marlo has finally been exposed to be the ultimate Minecraft fraud who faked everything, even down to their gender, with undeniable proof. And so, seeing how much of an unprecedented disaster this all is, and how confusing it might be to someone who's
It's some
not
good chicken,
part
bro.
of the Minecraft PvP community, I figured we had to talk about it. And so, without further ado, let's do this. Alright, so if you haven't been living under a rock for the last 2 decades, you probably know what Minecraft is. And when it comes to most people, they recognize it as the sandbox survival game, otherwise known as Minecraft Vanilla. Some others might recognize it differently, modding the game heavily with visual and gameplay enhancements and pretty much making it into an entirely different game.
I used to love Minecraft when I was younger, but now that I'm a little bit older, I don't play it anymore because I don't really enjoy it.
However, another sizable chunk of this game's player base will look at it purely from a PvP perspective, going up against other players to prove their skill in numerous game modes.
I know
And for
people
someone
do
who
the
doesn't play
speed runs
PvP
and
at all,
stuff, but
this is
that
where
ain't really
things
my
get
thing.
very confusing because these game modes are very different from the gameplay you've come to expect in vanilla or even modded Minecraft. One of these PvP game modes, for example, is called UHC, where both players start with the same exact loadouts, having to use a mix of building, laying things down on the terrain, and also using their weapons and defending all at the same time. Another game mode is called Nethbot, which literally just involves you throwing pots at each other, with many of them having different abilities and effects. However, one of the most popular and probably the most confusing game mode for new players is Crystal PvP. Here's some gameplay, and yes, it's totally normal if you have literally no idea what's going on. It mostly involves using a mix of obsidian blocks as well as ender crystals to kill the other player. How did people come up with this concept? Well, that's a 1-hour video by itself. The point is, this game has over 200
People really
million
sweating
monthly
at
active
Minecraft.
users
That's
that play it,
crazy.
and a good chunk of them play only PvP. This is what they focus on. But here's the deal. When you focus on something for so long and want to get better at it, there's a question that starts to pop up in the community. Who are the best players for each game mode? In fact, who's the best of them all? And seeing that all these servers with all these different game modes are unofficial, they're simply not affiliated with the official game or its developers, most had given up on the idea of coming up with a ranking system. But that would of course be until mctiers.com would come along. MC Tiers would be a community-driven effort to rank players in all 8 of these different game modes. This would all be done through its PvP server on Minecraft, called mcpvp.club. Its founders were mainly 3 people: Enz, Learn, and of course, Marlo. And the way it worked wasn't very simple, actually. In a nutshell though, MC Tiers would have a Discord for every single one of these game modes. So Crystal PvP, UHC, Pot, NetOp, etc, etc. It will be open to anyone. And let's say you wanted to test out your Crystal PvP level, you would join the server, join the waitlist, and eventually get tested. And the way it would work wouldn't be MMR based like games similar to Valorant or Overwatch. You would have people in the voice call with you, watching you play and examining your playstyle as you go up against all these different tiers. There'd be 5 of these tiers, tier 5 being the worst and tier 1 being the best. This meant that when it came to this community-driven effort, trust was at its forefront. You were trusting the people examining everyone to do this in a non-biased way and to the best of their ability. But of course, this also meant that this system had a lot of its critics. When confronted though, the response would always be the same. Do you have any better ideas? No one in the community had come close to making something
Bro,
like
what's
this.
up
And
with
in
my
fact, today,
commands
if you
not
type on
working?
Google Minecraft PvP, the first thing you'll see is MC tiers.
I gotta fix that later.
View Minecraft's best combat players or participate in the ranked community. To many people in Minecraft's sizable PvP community, this was the official ranking for the best players in the world, period. And speaking of best players, even though Marlo was one of the co-founders of the website, you'd always manage to see her in the top 3 best players of all time on the leaderboard. This right here is the first version of 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗥, which came out shortly after the pandemic, around the early 2020s. By then, for most people, the player 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗔 was the best Minecraft PvP player of all time. But Marlo would always be close second. The gap between 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗔 and Marlo was always very wide to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th players. They were always in a league of their own, and there's a reason for that. This overall leaderboard would combine all the 8 game modes together for your overall rank. 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗔 and Marlo were constantly in the top ranks of every single game mode. And to make you understand what this means, this is like someone who is a NASCAR driver that also happens to be a rally race car driver and who also happens to be a Formula 1 driver, all at the same time.
They gotta be young because ain't no way you have that much time
be good at all
to play Minecraft and still make money.
Just because you're good at one of these game modes doesn't mean you're good at all of them. They all require different strategies, keybinds, and an insane, ridiculous learning curve, but both 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗔𝗔 and Marlo made it look easy. They were dominating in every single one. But the thing is, to many, Marlo was yet on another level. At some point, she beat one of the best PvPers in Minecraft 100-0. Yes, they fought together 100 times, and she didn't let him win once. Clown Pierce got absolutely destroyed, utterly owned, and it only served to show why Marlo was so close to beating the best player of all time.
If I was him, I would have probably knew whoever that is
Minecraft
cheating.
PvP community, and as recently as 2025, many were in agreement. The best player of all time in Minecraft PvP is Marlo. No argument, no questions asked. This level of skill definitely came with its advantages, with Marlo's YouTube channel reaching over 400,000 subscribers and any video they'd upload getting hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million views consistently, generating substantial revenue and getting their name more and more known within the community. That's without mentioning all the collabs she'd do on YouTube with some very well-renowned YouTubers, always titling the video as, "I fought the best Minecraft player in this," or "I got trained by the world's best Minecraft player in this." And what's interesting is that these channels weren't necessarily PvP oriented, so you had the casual Minecraft crowd that watched YouTube videos be aware of her existence and her unprecedented skill. And so, to the average bystander,
Minecraft had this much.
They had worked hard to become one of the best players in the world.
A player base for
they finally
competitive.
were able to start reaping the benefits. But you'd be mistaken to think that this was all sunshine and rainbows. Marlo had seemingly, for some people, come out of nowhere. And just like that, beaten players that have had so many years of exposure in the community made them look like they were amateurs, like they couldn't even play the game. On top of that, this was a community that had very few women in it. Minecraft PvP is mostly male-oriented. And in a leaderboard that has very few, if not 0 women, you'd see one woman come in and get to 2nd place, trailblazing over everyone else. And so if you've been on the internet for long enough, you'd know that all these things combined, especially with the very chaotic Minecraft community, would lead to one of the most unstable periods in Minecraft PvP history, in which Marlo, at the center of all this, would be subject to massive harassment and criticism. What would follow from that chaos, though, would be Marlo cementing her power like no one could have ever imagined. Dream, a name typically synonymous with cringe or vomit, is a YouTuber who at some point was one of, if not the biggest Minecraft YouTuber of all time. This was during the pandemic, getting over 100 million views on some of his videos, as well as 34 million subscribers, would
Over
on
100
June
million
11th,
views,
2020, claim to have beaten the Minecraft speedrun world record. An incredible feat, but also very divisive. You see, this would lead an unprecedented amount of people to examine every single second of his gameplay and determine that there were some things that simply were too improbable statistically to occur at the same time in the same run, to the point where it's almost impossible. It would be centered on some item drop rates that would allow him to finish the game so damn quickly. When confronted with this, Dream would time and time again deny this vehemently, saying that he didn't cheat, it was legit, and even trying to prove that in numerous ways. In fact, by December 2020, he would get so desperate that he would famously hire a Harvard astrophysicist to write a 20-page report as to why Dream didn't cheat. Yes, it sounds as ridiculous as you might think, and it actually did happen. I still can't believe it to this day. What's most important to point out here is that after this paper and after he tried to disprove it multiple times, his fanatical community, who was extremely big and parasocial at the time, would attack, bully, harass anyone who disagreed. Anyone who'd make a video about this would get bombarded with dislikes, with bad comments. It really set this side of the internet ablaze. Anyone who was a part of the Minecraft community was aware of this. But even so, they didn't let go of this. They weren't going to let him get away with it. And only after a few more months of pressure by the community would Dream finally let go. By May 2021, Dream would write this massively long Twitter post admitting that he cheated, but that he had no idea. He had something installed on his PC, had forgotten to remove it or something, and oh man, it just so happened to be there and I did it. How unfortunate. Cheating accidentally happens to the best of us. Well, I'm sure that when he cheated in February 2026, he did that on accident too. But that's a completely different story. All you need to understand is that Dream has quite an impressive cheating resume, okay? And unfortunately, this says a lot about the community. If the biggest Minecraft YouTuber at the time was able to pull off a cheating scandal, then what the hell is stopping everyone else? Nothing. Which is what we've been seeing over the last few years. It feels like every month I see something pop up in my recommended about some guy who cheated and deceived the whole community. At this point, it's part of the Minecraft culture. And so because of that, the community, rightfully so, has a lot of trust issues when it comes to records. Whether it be a speedrun record, a PvP record, a ranking system, you name it. This is a very low trust community when it comes to the competitive scene. So by the time Marlow had become the #1 player of all time in PvP, those same suspicions were being put at the forefront yet again. Because she hadn't just beaten the best player of all time, which was It's Real Me, she had wiped the floor with him, sitting at 450 points while he was sitting at 330 points. These points signify an accumulation of every single one of these 8 game modes. And Marlow was the only player on planet Earth that had gotten tier 1 in every single one of these game modes. Have you ever seen someone that is so skilled at driving? They're the best Formula 1 driver, drift car race driver, rally car race driver, NASCAR race driver, just everything. They're the best at everything involving a car? No. And yet there she was doing it. To some, this was an amazing achievement that needed to be celebrated, especially since she was a woman and you don't see many of those in Minecraft PvP. And to others, this was extremely suspicious and it didn't necessarily have to do with gender. Well, actually it kind of did, because many believed that Marlow wasn't even a woman. Some had reason to believe that the person behind Marlow was none other than Danger Mario, a player who already had a bit of a reputation on certain PvP servers and who created Marlow as his persona.
Mario,
one of the first people to reveal
that name
this to the
familiar,
world
I ain't gonna lie.
The YouTuber
Not familiar,
Zay.
but like, I
Uploading a
mean,
video
it
titled
sounded
Marlow's
like...
True Identity, 3+ Years of Lies on May 10th, 2024. He would go very deep here, finding an old video of Danger Mario that was deleted off of YouTube and comparing his and Marlow's hotbar, and they played very similarly in that regard. He'd also compare their PC specs based on what Marlow said and what Danger Mario had already revealed to the internet. They would turn out to be using the exact same PC coincidentally. Zay would then argue that there's sufficient proof to prove that Danger Mario had used the Marlow account back in 2021 to test whether he'd get banned or not using the Meteor client in one of the PvP.
Bro, there's that many coincidences. That's not gonna happen. Unless it is like the craziest coincidence of the world.
Servers
they're the same person.
Saying that the Marlow account just so happened to be banned at the same time that Danger Mario had uploaded a video talking about the same subject. At the time, Danger Mario used a TTS voice and never revealed his real voice. Look, this video would get a lot of attention because people already had their suspicions, but it would still get a lot of backlash as well. In 2025, someone would come in and type, "This aged like absolute shit." Someone else would say, "All happened because PvPers never heard of women. Bro isn't cooking, skull emoji." And overall, he was seen as a complete madman who was prone to conspiracies.
People that say stuff like this, you gotta ignore them because they're little kids a lot of the time.
Was very loyal and willing to defend
or they're
her
just
no matter
sad
what.
humans.
It was getting hard to ignore just how skilled Marlow was, to the point where it was almost inhuman. Back in 2024, this was some of her haters' main criticism. And eventually, it would get too big to ignore because one of the co-founders of MCTears.com, Learn, would also become convinced that Marlow has to be cheating. There's no way someone can be that good. It's just inhuman. So Marlow's walls were closing in around her. But even though you might think that this just might be the typical case of a cheater in the Minecraft community, where people keep calling them out, they keep denying it, and eventually they get caught, this here was very different. This was not like the Dream situation, because unlike Dream, Marlowe had a secret weapon, and that weapon was the misogyny shield. You saw it in some of the comments on the video we just saw. Oh, Minecraft player discovers what a woman is. You're just hating because you're insecure and a woman is top 1 in the game that you play. And I mean, of course this would be the community's reaction. If a woman just as much says hi in an online game, she gets instantly killed. Marlowe was aware of this, and seeing that she was getting never before
Imagine how you gotta feel every day cosplaying a Minecraft player as a girl.
Creating a video response titled,
I know, man, I know he was going through it and unhappy.
A 2-hour, 14-minute video going through every piece of criticism ever laid upon her and presenting it.
Money ain't gonna fix that. I ain't gonna lie.
You know, like,
there's a lot of things money can fix.
It makes it look like she's being assaulted by a mob of angry psychos just because she's a woman. And if you watch the video itself, that's mostly the arguments used here. The video would mostly focus on 2 topics, and Marlowe would speak with, well, a female-sounding voice. It would make Learn, one of the co-founders of 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗥, seem like a backstabbing psychopath who had it in for her just because she's a woman. The other part of the video would focus on the whole idea of totalitarianism, how she silences any critics, and how this whole thing, this whole hoax about how she's actually Danger Mario is nothing more but a carefully engineered lie to smear her. How, according to her, she believes that the Danger Mario account was created and owned by those same haters, how she has nothing to do with it. This video would get over 800,000 views, would be very well received, have a very nice like to dislike ratio, and the comments would be nothing but supportive, reiterating that this is just a game, or saying things like absolutely ridiculous the amount of obstacles you had to go through just because you merely existed. Many were convinced that this wasn't a topic about catfishing or cheating. This was purely insecure men who just couldn't stand seeing a woman be better than them in a game. It made the overall Minecraft community look bad, something that this community truly didn't need, seeing as like every year there's a content creator that comes out to be some sort of child diddler, and it strengthened the misogyny shield defense to unprecedented levels for Marlowe. But again, while some were really concerned with the idea that this was a catfish, this wasn't a woman, at the time it overshadowed the main issue. The fact that she's a hacker, the fact that she's not playing legit, she's too good for a human being. This wasn't about gender. But after this video that was released in July 2024, if you went to any Minecraft PvP content creator, even someone who was absolutely destroyed by
that thumbnail with the title is just so cringe,
get immediately and utterly shut down. Because by that point onwards, if you had anything negative to say about Marlowe, you were considered a misogynist in the Minecraft community. You were someone who simply hated women. You were an incel because Marlowe did nothing wrong. And so, emboldened by this incredible support by the community, a few months later, around the end of 2024, Marlowe would release a 17-page Google Doc titled The Future of MC Tears. Here she would reiterate some of the points she raised in her video about Learn being a weirdo and about how the other co-founder, Enz, wasn't agreeing to removing him. This is when she would announce to the world that since she's the one who was paying for the infrastructure of MC Tears, she'd be reclaiming her accounts to become the sole owner of 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗥 as well as its Minecraft PvP server. She has successfully convinced the community that these 2 other co-founders were weird and that the website was going to continue, but instead of being co-owned by 3 people, it would be owned by her exclusively. There was nothing really suspicious or weird to be considered by the wider community at the time. And so, end of 2024 onwards, this would somewhat be the status quo. After reaching rank 1, Marlowe would retire. MC Tears would still be the top destination for any PvP related rankings, and on the surface it seemed like things were starting to calm down. But they weren't. And to be honest, it's mostly because this tier list is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life. By this point, both Marlowe and It's Real Me would have retired. They're not playing the game anymore. They're not participating in rankings anymore. And yet MC Tears had this weird policy where even retired players get to stay on the overall leaderboard, the overall active leaderboard. This meant that Marlowe was number 1. And since Marlowe somehow managed to get tier 1 in every single fucking game mode, it meant that no one on planet Earth could ever hope to get number 1. She had capped the points, 450 points, tier 1 in everything. Even if you were to get tier 1 in everything, you would only cap at 450 points, which makes you 2nd place, and she reached it 1st. This meant that she had a chokehold on the tier list for the Minecraft PvP community and on the number 1 spot. Over time, people would start to find this ridiculous, and the criticism would intensify to never before seen levels. However, if you had anything to say about Marlowe, her cheating, or her not being an actual woman, you would simply get banned from the MC Tears Discords as a whole and blacklisted from the server. This meant that you could never hope to participate in this tier list that is considered to be the official tier list for Minecraft PvP, and you wouldn't even be able to play on the Minecraft server of MC Tears. Anytime you'd open your mouth to say anything regarding Marlo that's negative, you would simply be banned for being a dirty misogynist incel. The silencing would go on for almost 2 years, but it would finally reach a boiling point in 2026 when everything that Marlo had built would fall apart within the span of a few weeks, while also revealing to us her extremely disturbing master plan, which involved her purposefully waiting until things do reach a boiling point in order to fake her death on a call with some of the biggest Minecraft content creators you can imagine. The Minecraft PvP community would reach a boiling point
like,
around
there is
January
no way.
2026. Around this time, a handful of different YouTubers would release their own videos exposing
why
Marlo,
not just
whether it be
disappear and
deception
go on
the
about
fact
your
that she's
life?
a woman, or straight up talking about how she's a hacker, she's a cheater, and she's not actually that good at the game, providing as much proof as possible based on the gameplay we were given. As far as I can tell, this would all start on January 10th, 2026, when the YouTuber Critically would upload the video titled The Art of Deception, Marlo, in which he'd argue that Marlo's moves were physically impossible, but also that her gameplay was simply inconsistent. He'd make multiple gameplay-specific arguments as to how Marlo's gameplay simply didn't make sense unless she was hacking, going up against someone using hacks himself to prove that her moveset was the same exact thing. It was just how a hacker would play. When he would bring any ounce
And nobody
of criticism
noticed
up
this
in the
before?
server, well, he'd get banned for destructive behavior. So now he has no access to MC tiers and can't participate in the tier list. Unlike the videos released in 2024, this one would be received pretty well, with many agreeing. 6
So
days
he got
later, on
banned
January
for
16th,
saying real
2026,
facts
the YouTuber Mario Kart
and putting up a
617
good
released a
argument.
video titled The Curious Case of Marlo, in which he'd also argue, using some of the same arguments, that Marlo is simply not legitimate. There are some very obvious signs of aimbotting, as well as just straight up hacking. And all these videos had one thing in common, making the point that the referee shouldn't be a part of the competition. Marlo, being in such a position of power, allowed her to get away with this for a long time without anyone being able to do anything about it because she owned the tier list. So as you can see, these videos were coming out fairly frequently in January, and unlike back in 2024, they weren't being received as like conspiracy theorists because these people weren't focusing on the fact.
All right, first off, I don't think the top players should have been able to own the tier list. That's like corrupt in itself and kind of stupid.
That Marlo wasn't a woman. They were focusing on the fact that Marlo was cheating, regardless of gender. And even though Marlo was running her Discord like a totalitarian dictator, banning pretty much anyone with anything negative to say, these accusations of cheating would start to take hold in a very serious way in the community, to the point where even she couldn't ignore it. Even in her little totalitarian Discord, she had to make some sort of response. And eventually, she did. On January 23rd, 2026, Marlo would upload the video titled Hacking is Bad, sitting at over 1 million views. Starting it off with some text on the screen saying, "For years, I have been accused of hacking, boosting, and other forms of anti-competitive behavior. Throughout the community, for years, people have used my name, skin, etc. in order to attempt to increase views. In recent times, this has been detrimental. A domino effect has led people to rapidly producing content claiming I hack. It certainly does get clicks. I will be proving my legitimacy in a public manner, as it's the only way to make it properly accessible to outsiders coming across slander." So for this, Marlo would show a hand cam of her mouse. That's it. No keyboard. She'd use some excuse about needing to use a keyboard tray, right? But you can't even see the keyboard, which is funny because some of the main accusations were relating to the hotbar and how quickly she switched between items that wasn't humanly possible. But anyway, she would show a hand cam, and to the many people watching this, who also happened to watch the other instances in which she destroyed pro players, they could see something very interesting. The fact that she was extremely slow. Okay, this was nothing compared to the gameplay we had seen of Marlo previously. This was not the same Marlo that beat Clown 100-0. You know why? Because this actually looked like a human being playing. Those other clips weren't. Marlo would also show this all happen on a brand new laptop, trying to prove that there were no hacks involved whatsoever, and then would go on to show the entire PC, right? A forensic screenshot. That's the majority of the video. That's like 1 hour, 40 minutes of the video. It's safe to say that most people didn't really watch this. But the point that Marlo was trying to make here is that no, there are no hacks on my PC, and my gameplay is actually legit, but it actually would backfire very hard. This was just another dream hiring an astrophysicist scenario. Marlo had carefully thought out the initial video that she had made back in 2024, making herself out to be a victim being attacked by the Minecraft community for being a woman. But this was different. This felt like she was digging herself deeper into a hole that she had created. That's because her answers to the many questions the community had only ended up raising even more questions. Why are you hiding your keyboard? Why is your gameplay so different? Why are you so slow? Something just wasn't adding up. So barely a week after uploading this video, as more and more people start to ask questions and as certain content creators also started to ask these questions, Marlo would make this statement in her Discord server, saying, "Hey everyone, I'm making this post to announce that I will be transferring ownership of MC tiers and leaving all of my related staff positions. Ownership will be transferred to 𝗢𝗢, who as many of you know has been a long-term staff member and contributor to the project. Over time, it has become clear that the bitterness towards my position has grown to a point where it now actively detracts from the
Yo, what
community
up,
itself.
Scarlett?
I believe that my
How you
presence
doing,
is
bro?
no longer ideal for the health and stability of the community, and that transferring ownership is circumstantially necessary. I would like to make something clear though. I reject the claims of corruption, theft, and abuse that have been made
I'm
against
just
me as an
reacting to
owner,
this
and my decision
Minecraft
to
number
transfer
one
ownership
cheater
does not serve as a
situation right now.
concession to being guilty of these claims. Despite leaving, I will not allow my previous reputation as an owner to be tarnished. I intend to
Kinda
release
crazy.
an extensive video covering and conclusively debunking these claims. In fact, it's among my top
I don't know
priorities at the
nothing
moment.
about
And due to the
Minecraft
totality
competitive,
of the
but
claims
this
being made, it will take some time to
situation
complete.
pretty
On a personal
interesting.
level, this is a deeply disappointing
No,
decision
it
for
ain't
me.
Dream.
I've invested an enormous amount of time,
It's a different
effort,
person, bro.
and care into building this community throughout the many years that I've been a part of it, and it feels as if my effort has been repeatedly met with hatred and vitriol along the way. I still intend
The whole
to remain part of the
situation could have
competitive
ended
scene.
right
Competing
here,
has
but
always
by the
been one of the
video,
core
I know it
reasons I have
didn't.
been as immersed in the game as I am, and I'm not yet finished fulfilling my ambitions. I believe people will also get to see once more that my success as a player was never a result of any stat position I held, but rather was the result of my mindset and dedication towards becoming a better player. Something that I want to
Definitely.
note is that I've been largely offline on Discord. I have signed in out of necessity to make this post, and my absence will remain the case for the foreseeable future while I focus on what's in front of me. I hope that 𝗢𝗢 and all the other supporting staff members will have a positive experience with the community moving forward. At this point, the community was split. On one hand, they felt shame that they were part of a community that bullied a woman so endlessly that she had to leave, and they wanted their revenge. On the other hand, people saw this as an admission of guilt, as someone trying to run away now that they were caught, not wanting to admit that they are a fraud. In the end though, Marlo had chosen to leave, and with her, many others would follow, including 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗥, a well-known player in the community who had previously defended Marlo against the hate and vitriol she had received, that now said he believes she's cheating. Additionally saying that he's very frustrated with the tier list system because almost like 40% of the top 200 players are just hackers in his opinion. Things felt like they were completely falling apart, but this was just the beginning. This was nothing compared to what would happen
I ain't gonna lie,
next.
Minecraft
On February
competitive
12th,
sound like a waste of
2026,
time.
The YouTuber 𝗢𝗀 would release a video titled Marlo, the biggest cheater in Minecraft history. Here, we'd get some of the most detailed analysis on the internet when it came to why and how Marlo cheats, going frame by frame to show that it's physically impossible as to how fast Marlo would switch items on the hotbar. The only way to do so is hacking. That's literally how it looks when you hack, as well as going deep inside the math of it all. This would really analyze all sides as well, trying to
Bro,
view this from
going
different
into the
viewpoints.
math
Okay, what
of
if she's
it.
innocent? Then that means this happened. Well, if she's
Damn,
not
my
innocent,
fault.
that
I didn't
means
know
this
Minecraft got
happened.
this serious,
Additionally,
bro.
he'd reach out to some of the top players in the community, as well as people who are specialists when it comes to Minecraft hacks. Not a single person sided with Marlo. And this to many was enough proof. She's 100% cheating. There's no arguing about it anymore. People are finally not scared to talk about it. But again, you'd be mistaken to think that this is where things ended. Because now that people understood that Marlo was hacking, next up came the accusation that was already shut down a couple years ago for sexism, which was the fact that Marlo wasn't even Marlo. It was a man that was pretending to be a woman. On March 15th, 2026, the same YouTuber, 𝗢𝗀, would upload another video titled The Marlo Interview, featuring Danger Marlo. In this video, 𝗢𝗀 would get into a call with Marlo and ask her to prove that she's a woman by saying some very simple words, nothing crazy. And so Marlo took the bait, thinking that this was going to be simple. But 𝗢𝗀 had carefully planned this out. But before we get into this, you have to understand how Marlo's real voice sounded, the one that was shown in her previous videos. Listen.
To lay the red carpet for a new prospect to replace me by exiling me from the community. Well, to most people, this video seemed like it was intended to service the
So this was how she sounded in her 2024 video in which she accused the community of dogpiling her. Now listen to how she sounds on the call with 𝗢𝗀 when he would ask her to say some very simple words. Cat, key, cow, cake, cookie, kick, coke.
cat, key, cow, cake, cookie, kick, coke. Can you sing a song for me? I'm not gonna sing a song for you.
So look, it sounded very
You trying to
robotic,
test if it's a voice
suspiciously
changer or
so.
something?
He would then ask her to sing a song. She doesn't want to sing a song. Okay, fine. He would then ask her a very simple request, the final request. Please just say do re mi fa sol la si do with the proper pitch, right? Like not do re mi fa, no, like do re mi fa sol la si do. And so yeah, watch what happens.
Okay, okay, just say do re mi fa sol la si do. You don't have to sing it, just change pitch. That's it.
She's nowhere to be found. She's still online, on the phone, nowhere to be found. Can't even say the simple sentence, right? Like a 5-year-old can do this.
Type in the message.
After 1 minute and
That's
13
tough.
seconds of pure silence, Marlo would disconnect and then would conveniently say that the power cut out in her state. Yeah, how convenient. Things were now looking horrendously bad for Marlo. Not only were people convinced that she was a straight-up hacker, but now it was about the fact that she wasn't even a woman. In fact, he was pretending to be a woman this whole time. But why? To what end? What's the goal here? Who is this Danger Mario, and what the hell does he want from this community? What was the plan? Well, after this video from Refwan, we would find out, and it would be way more disturbing than any of us could have ever imagined. On March 18th, 2025, the YouTuber 𝗢𝗧𝗛𝗥
Ain't no way it's
would
finna
upload a
get
video
worse.
titled Marlo's True Identity, in which he claims that someone close to Danger Mario who knew him would join his Discord, claiming he had text messages dating back all the way to 2023 that would expose him for who he truly was and his entire plan involving Marlo. So these two would communicate on the messaging app known as Telegram, and this leaker with messages dating back to 2023 would be referring to this other person as Danger, aka Danger Mario, the person accused of being behind the control of Marlo. Back in December 2023, we could see the plans that Danger Mario was having for Marlo, saying, "But next year I'm going to hard grind YouTube and commentate content by cloning an AI voice impression of Marlo. I'll rack up a bunch of subs and become pretty well known, then I might open up a large-scale Minecraft server as they are extremely profitable. I have a Discord server full of social media influencers and server admins, and I'm going to use that to fully prepare the blacklist," which is basically a list of players that have been known for malicious activity like swatting, grooming, doxing, etc. I'll be able to gain camaraderie with a lot of relevant servers and influencers simply by running something so community-oriented. Hell, in 2024, Danger Mario would send the leaker an image. In it, we can see Discord messages, and more importantly, in the yellow highlighted text, we can see Marlo being either replied to
What
or
is
pinged.
going on
This
in the
only happens
Minecraft
when you're
community,
the person
bro?
being pinged or being replied to. So he's right here showing that he's actually Marlo. This leaker was someone who definitely was very trusted by Danger Mario. Back in 2024, as Marlo was getting a lot of backlash and needed to address the community in some way, Danger Mario would write these statements and then send them to this leaker to ask his opinion. And one of the most interesting things in these text messages would be how in January 26, 2024, Danger Mario would already be pre-planning to release the infamous video known as My Experience with the Minecraft PvP Community on July 2024. He would, in his own words, say, "Indeed, this next vid is going to be about the community. It'll be really good for sparking drama and people sympathizing. Should redirect the haters and gain tons of support." The leaker would say, "Nice thumbnail. Yeah, that'll definitely spark drama." To which Danger Mario would say, "I might be able to attain full ownership of the tier list in doing this," showing that this was the plan all along. Additionally, in these messages, we'd see Danger Mario sending this leaker an image of the hacks that he's using. It was an add-on to the client that he was using, the Meteor client. The reason why it went undetected for so long was because there was only one version of this. It was coded by someone named SNQ, purely
Why would
just
you
for
even
Danger
send
Mario.
a
You'd
leaker
also understand why
this shit
Marlo
and
sounded
think
so weird
that
in
the
Refwan's
leaker
video.
wasn't going to
That's because he'd
expose
been
you?
planning ever since January
When that's
2024
literally what a
to
leaker
generate
is.
an AI clone of himself talking in the Marlo voice. Apparently, Danger Mario had a pretty good effeminate voice. The guy had a high-pitched voice, I guess, and would want to train an AI to speak like him, and he would actually start using it for videos. This is when the leaker would link a
This is
video of a
very
collab
strange.
between Marlo and someone else, I guess, and would say, "Was this the AI voice? It's pretty good." To which Marlo would say, or I guess, yeah, Danger Mario would say, "No, that was not good enough for me. I did that like 1.5 years ago and he uploaded it late. It bothered me. Next vid will be a lot more legit sounding." And so, of course, when it comes to these text messages, some people would say that it's probably too convenient, right? This really features everything here. Well, 𝗢𝗧𝗥 didn't just upload this video without doing any research or really looking into this. He'd go above and beyond and would attach every single bit of proof this leaker had about Danger Mario in a Google Drive. We'd even see
Yeah, I
a
thought
video
about
of
playing
the leaker
Minecraft
himself
again, but
opening
stuff like
Telegram
this is
on
what
his
stopped
phone
me
to show
too,
that
bro.
all of these messages are legit. They're not made up, they're not photoshopped, they're not fake. This is exactly why the final part of this video is so damn disturbing. Genuinely, in all my time looking at like content creator drama, I've never seen something so disgusting, so audacious. In messages with the leaker as early as December 2023, Danger Mario would understand that eventually this whole Marlo persona will be exposed. This is when he'd come up with what he'd call the peer plot, saying, I'm going to fake Marlo's death by jumping off of a bridge with the camera facing the other way. I'll do it in a group with Marlo's closest friends and a few influencers. But before that, I'm going to spread false allegations about her from an alt, which I have already received staff positions on, grooming allegations. I've already built up the realism in Marlo committing suicide and vent conversations to her friends. Anyways, the grooming allegation video is more of a spark because I know the community is going to freak out over it. I'll have fully faked evidence and it will look legit.
Honestly, this video has me appalled right now, bro.
Though first, there are some people I want to help as well that I know as Marlo, so I need to attain some kind of financial success as well. Hyde thinks it's probably a poor decision to do the peer plot, but my concern is that I know that this won't last forever and eventually something will come out. So I have to be able to do something like this before it ends, then I'll be successful in my goal. He'd even go as far as to say that if people would find out that the whole suicide attempt was fake, they'll just reverse it later, saying that he was in a mental hospital for months. It's just absolutely disgusting. It's mind-boggling that someone like this was able to get away with this for this long, all while throwing an entire gender under the bus. And for what? Some money? Some fame? Really? This is how far you'd go just to get that? Let's not forget that Marlo was an inspiration for a lot of female gamers. This person, or at this point, persona, had a lot of fans, both male and female. People who had bothered to defend her, people who had bothered to be there for her in her most vulnerable moments. This would have traumatized so many people, and this dude's over here talking about it casually like he's about to go for boba tea on a Sunday. I mean, dude, this Danger Mario guy,
bro, that person said Marlo talked to her about women's struggles when you're not even a woman. This was meant
to be a joint venture. They were meant to work together.
Bro, this is
meant that
insane.
The person who made the website trusted Marlo, or Danger Mario. It's the same person. Well, Danger Mario would just simply steal the entire website without really paying this person or even working with them like the promise was, and that's actually how the current MC Tiers website would exist. This whole design was stolen by Marlo. The person who got scammed had to make an entirely different website on their own, and it's called PvPtiers.com, which is now a competitor to MCTiers.com, but still not as popular. And I think the most ironic thing in all this is that Aximity had actually made a video about Marlo almost a year ago, back in 2024. But he got harassed so badly by Marlo's community, called a sexist, an incel, misogynist, etc., that he ended up having to delete his entire channel. But there he is, back, and this time fully vindicated. To say that this absolutely shattered the Minecraft PvP community would be an understatement. This was an unprecedented earthquake, and now the memes that have come out of this are endless. One of my favorites is how Marlo was able to get tier 1 in everything except singing Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Si Do. But of course, the main question was, now that this is all out, what did Marlo have to say about it? What was Marlo's response? She, or now he, was always there when controversy would get this big, was always willing to respond. And even though most people would have expected Marlo to completely disappear after this, surprisingly, they would send a message in Discord to everyone on March 18th, 2026, in which they would say, at everyone, hi, I want to provide you all with a proper explanation for everything that is currently going on. I'm generally reserved when it comes to addressing allegations since I feel like it's best to do it in video form, but this controversy has reached a point where I can't not say anything. Increasingly, this has blown up to the point where havoc is being wreaked upon my reputation, my friendships, and my mental health. As most of you probably know, over the course of the year, I have been receiving cheating allegations. Over time, these allegations shifted from cheating into something more personal. For a long time now, I have been working on an extensive video to debunk the allegations being brought against me. The video has taken up countless hours of work and is already over 2 hours long. It would be already out by now, but every day more allegations come. It is challenging to keep up with the quantity and
ain't
scope
no point of dropping this video, just give it up.
I'm going to have to draw the line for how much I can include in this video. I will be finishing up everything I have already currently planned to include, and will be publishing the video as soon as I am able to. Due to the new serious allegations that have come out, I will have to create another video after the release of my next one. While my upcoming video will provide a large amount of insight into many of the claims being made, it is important that I address everything, hence the need for another afterwards. Recently, allegations surrounding the player Danger Mario have resurfaced, and all the subsequent allegations that come as a result. The driving factor behind all of this is the quantity of the supporting evidence. My belief is that anyone who is judging the situation this way is unaware of the extent of impersonation that this player, as well as his surrounding group of friends, have gone to in order to ruin me. I have already made a video which included this in extreme detail, see section, totalitarianism, in my experience with the Minecraft PvP community. The most compelling part of the evidence being used against me is the fact that it has instances of conversations and personal details discussed about me within it. My ADHD as an example. In my full debunk video, I'll be addressing the origins of how these things were obtained as well as what is actually going on throughout the situation. It's
That
important
money
that I
must be
reiterate,
getting low.
people claiming to be me does not mean that they are me. I understand that the scale of the evidence
I
might
think
appear
that's what
significant,
happened.
but it must be remembered that this is the same group of people that are willing to create an entire 2B2T YouTube series in an attempt to lure me into getting further conned. I strongly advise people refamiliarize themselves with what was covered in my old video, as it demonstrates the persistent pattern of behavior that serves as the foundation for everything happening today. Now look, I know what you might be thinking. How did she exactly disprove the fact that she's Danger Mario in this 2-hour 14-minute video? Well, yes, it would be in the section totalitarianism, and it would mostly focus on a few interesting individuals that wouldn't stop harassing her about the fact that she's Danger Mario. These people would inconsistently accuse Marlo of being Danger Mario, while also saying that they used to know Danger Mario on the Anarchy server that he used to play on back in 2021. Marlo would claim that this is harassment and that what they were saying was inconsistent, but the problem was that this felt like Marlo was purely focusing on these people because it was easy to focus on them. It was easy to make them look bad because they didn't seem to be the most mentally stable individuals, and that worked at the time. But right now, this is all outdated. These text messages that were leaked from Telegram are completely different from this. You can't fake dates on Telegram. If something was sent in 2023, it was sent in 2023, and we have proof. The person opened Telegram and showed us. It's not photoshopped, it's not edited. How would Marlo explain that a screenshot was sent from someone who's being referred to as Danger, in which he was being pinged on the Marlo account? It just doesn't make sense. It's very easy to tell people, oh, go watch this 2-hour video that I know you won't even watch to prove that I'm innocent, but in reality, these Telegram messages pretty much debunk everything. In the end though, Marlo seems to care more about the fact that people are exposing that, well, he's a man, compared to the fact that he's a cheater. The evidence and the proof are simply overwhelming. This is not real gameplay, this is not real skill, and this has nothing to do with whether this is a man or a woman. But it was Danger Mario himself, or Marlo, or whatever you want to call this person, that very conveniently used the fact that they were a woman to deflect any criticism, throwing an entire gender under the bus. At the same time, the master plan of faking their death in order to run away from having to take responsibility for being a fraud is peak degenerate behavior. And you know what's crazy? Throughout my research, I saw people who didn't even play Minecraft PvP defending Marlo, right? Because they just happened to be a woman, or they just happened to be someone who wanted to stand up for women's rights, and saw people bullying Marlo thinking that it's simply because a woman happened to be good at a game.
That's
and was
crazy,
being
bro.
bullied for it because of insecure men.
Women will
The person
defend each
behind
other
Marlo
just for
planning
being
to
a
do
woman.
something like this is the biggest form of insult for anyone who's dealing with mental health issues, and even content creators who went through the same thing and actually went with taking their own life. One example that comes to my mind is Etika, and it's just disgusting that someone like this would want to attempt to recreate that, all just to get away from the responsibility of something.
If the
they
whole world
created.
would stick
Look,
together
usually
like
I wait for
women
someone's
do,
response,
man,
but
we
I
could
doubt
solve
that
so
Marlo's
many
response is
problems.
going to be adequate. I doubt that it's going to be any different from the last video they made. This is just another dream situation where we have so much proof that they're cheating, and while they can try to yap and talk for 2 to 3 hours about it, nothing is going to change. In fact, the more you talk about it, the more you'll seem suspicious, because why do you need to explain so much? The community has already made up its mind, and even people who used to call others misogynistic for calling out Marlo are now siding with them. This was never about gender, and it shouldn't ever be about gender. This is about someone who took over an entire community illegitimately in the most manipulative way possible. And if there's anything for you to learn from this, it's to never defend content creators blindly. Look at all the different perspectives and then make up your mind. Otherwise, you'll be severely disappointed, like many of the people who gave everything for Marlo, now feeling like idiots. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I really appreciate it. And if
Man, that was a good video. I ain't gonna cap, but Marlo, get some help.